to pasture land, got dirt on the boots and a working hand. From the milk house hum to the auction call, these are the folks standing strong and tall. Yeah, this is the bovine coming on the air, sharing the stories of the folks who care. Profiles of passion, voices of the trade, dairy strong legends being made. Yeah, this is the bovine coming on the air, sharing the stories of the folks who care. Profiles of passion, voices of the trade, dairy strong legends being made.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Bullvine Podcast. It's great to have you with me today. Whether you've just finished morning chores, you're out for a drive, or stealing a quiet minute in the office, I'm glad you tuned in because I've got a truly inspiring story for you. One about roots, vision, and how a little girl in a dusty Ontario fair ring could end up leading the charge for Canadian dairy's communication future. So, settle in, because this one's not just about milk, cattle, or data. This is about how one person's journey can change what's possible for everyone who cares about the future of farming. Let's start about as far back as you can. Imagine a little girl, just 3 years old, at Centerville Fair in Eastern Ontario. You probably remember those days yourself. Show rings full of dust, calves fidgeting, your family bustling around you, everyone pitching in. Madison Dyment was that girl, holding the lead rope of her calf, Lilo, proudly marching into the ring alongside her older cousins. The sweet smell of fresh shavings mixing with summer air and the anticipation that only a county fair can create. Parents and grandparents lining the rail, heart in their throat, cameras at the ready. They're watching not just for ribbons, but to see the next generation take up the torch. Those moments matter. For Madison, that little slice of childhood, showing in the same ring as her cousins, surrounded by family, was the first chapter in a story that would change her and could change Canadian dairy for years to come. See, for Madison, dairy wasn't just an interest. It was in her bones, the fabric of daily life. Her mom's family, her dad's family, and even her stepdad's side were all, as she puts it, generational dairy farmers. Folks who still work the land and put in the hours, day in, day out. That wasn't just talk in her house. It was supper table strategy sessions, the play-by-play on heifer development, comparing notes on neighbors' breeding decisions, keeping up on every trend that hit the industry. And she didn't just inherit a work ethic. Madison's family is what she affectionately calls a chatty group. Open conversation, encouragement, support for taking different paths, all that was baked in. Yeah, she toyed with being a teacher. She considered vet school, even thought about being a marine biologist. But when it came right down to it, she found her greatest love was teaching, English, and of course, agriculture. Only back then, she thought she had to choose between those things. Here's where things take a turn worth remembering. A kitchen table kind of moment. Madison's mom, seeing her daughter's passions, recommends looking into agricultural communications. It's the kind of advice that sounds simple, but it changed the trajectory of Madison's life. Suddenly, Madison realized she didn't have to let go of any piece of herself. She could bring her love of teaching, writing, and farming together, maybe even become a professor one day. If you grew up on a farm, you know sometimes your story looks a little different than the next kid's. Madison never lived on a milking farm. Her family worked a small breeding operation instead, and before high school, they moved closer to town. She took responsibilities other farm kids may not have, and when high school hit, she started milking for a neighbor, balancing chores at home and at the barn down the road. She credits her parents for teaching her and her sisters the value of hard work that's less physical for her these days, but just as driven. Madison's parents didn't just foster a love of work, they made sure she felt free to explore. She remembers them encouraging every career phase any kid can imagine, never pushing her in one direction, but always ready to support the decisions she made. But then reality hit. If Madison wanted to pursue agricultural communications at a deeper level, she had to leave home. There just wasn't a robust program in Canada that would let her blend her love for teaching, English, and agriculture in a purposeful way. It was a hard thing to face, but Madison understood that she would have to move away, not for a semester, not for a summer, but for years if she wanted to chase this dream. So off she went, first to the University of Kentucky, then down to Florida for her PhD. And it was more than a change of scenery. Madison found her way into the orbit of Dr. Ricky Telg at the University of Florida, a man who's often called the father of AgCom. Dr. Telg has built his legacy shaping the very core of how many modern agricultural communications programs operate all over the U.S., breathing life into curriculum, faculty training, student mentorship, the works. Madison describes Dr. Telg as a superhero in so many ways. He taught her about how to be a great teacher, how to give back, even how to nurture faith. And importantly, Dr. Telg's take on communications wasn't stuck in the past. It was broad, creative, and alive, showing Madison that agricultural communications could mean everything from digital media to crisis management, social media, educator training, and defending dairy in the court of public opinion. Another massive influence was Dr. Jamie Loiseau. Under her guidance, Madison learned not to let the limits of what you see before you dictate how you go about your work. Loiseau pushed her to be creative, to push boundaries, and, importantly, to always think a little bit bigger than what everybody else thought was possible. This philosophy on mentorship is something Madison holds close. She deeply values getting to know her students or mentees for who they are. It's not just about classroom struggles, but about understanding the whole person, the farm they came from, the problems that might be weighing them down outside class, and where they want to go. Through these years of study and teaching, Madison's understanding of AgCom grew. Originally, she, like a lot of students she'd later meet at Guelph, really just thought of it as bridging the gap between producers and consumers, managing messaging, fighting misconceptions, telling our side of the story. But she'd come to find out the field was so much bigger. AgCom covers everything from government policy to agricultural marketing, from consulting to science communications, from rodeo broadcasting to digital media production, and yes, even law. That realization opened up an entirely new world, not just for Madison, but for all the students she's now hoping to help back in Canada. One of the coolest projects Madison's tackled, one she's honestly proudest of, was her dissertation. Not just because it meant finally holding that PhD parchment, but because of the way she was able to co-create knowledge with her participants. She talks about the difference it makes to bring people into the research in a real way, letting their voices and experiences guide the work. Her hope, and it's a big one, is to leverage that research to help other faculty get a head start, sharing mentorship, building up the discipline, bringing even more educators up to speed as AgCom grows. During her time in Florida, Madison teamed up with Dr. Loiseau on the Streaming Science Project, an international collaboration featuring scientists, grad students, undergrads, and alumni from the University of Guelph. Together, they created podcasts that shone a light on sustainable farming, science, and the very heart of agriculture. This wasn't just about building a student resume. It was testimony to what happens when you let learning reach beyond the classroom and into real hands-on advocacy. She's always had her eye on the practical meaning of her work. Madison says, "I want to adequately represent producer experiences and amplify their voices when I can." That producer-first, community partnership approach is really her secret sauce. She doesn't see herself dropping research on people from above. Instead, she dives in with them, makes the work about what matters to real folks, so the findings aren't just academic, they're usable back on the farm. All that, and Madison still says her biggest professional accomplishment, that dissertation and the work she did in co-creation, is something she's most proud of. She hopes the payoff is that new and veteran faculty alike can feel a bit more satisfied and in turn help the discipline of AgCom keep growing. She sees that discipline expanding, tackling new topics like natural resources communications, more variety in who pursues these programs, and bolder, broader impact in both education and in the industry. So what does all this mean for Canadian dairy? In Madison's eyes, the big challenge has always been, how do we build an education system up here that means kids don't have to leave home to chase their passions. Her vision is to create a formal agricultural communications program, an actual undergraduate and graduate option at the University of Guelph. And she wants it to be for everyone. The high schooler leading their first show calf, the producer facing another round of consumer misconceptions, the lifelong farmer who wants their story told with fairness and pride. And let me tell you, she's not alone in this vision. She's seen similar efforts work in places like the UK and Australia, where other AgCom leaders have set up new programs in universities that had nothing before. There's interest right here too. Alberta has started experimenting with AgCom offerings, and Madison's research has shown that kids, parents, and professionals are all hungry for more. But she also knows the job's not done until real change happens. Not just more classes, but a new way for Canadian dairy to get its story out there. In an industry where succession and legacy matter just as much as daily yield, this isn't optional. If the next generation of dairy leaders, and let's be honest, the farmers who carry the stickiest criticism from outsiders, wants to weather the storms, they'll need the skills to advocate, connect, and build credibility, online and off. Madison is adamant, you can't leave storytelling to outsiders. Dairy farmers across the country are under more pressure than ever to communicate clearly about welfare, sustainability, food safety, and economics. She wants to put the power back where it belongs, with the families who are living the story every day. Now, you can't talk about farming today without mentioning technology. And Madison is all in on this too, as long as it's used ethically. From AI-powered social tools that help farmers manage outreach and reputation, to using data to tell the true story about herd health, productivity, and sustainability, this is the next leap dairy needs to make. Farms generate enormous data every day, and Madison contends that with the right training and mindset, that data becomes our greatest asset in defending and defining the industry to consumers, processors, and even government. Let's not forget, she wants to equip her students and future dairy leaders to transform that jumble of milk weights, feed conversion, and animal health data into not just spreadsheets, but real, relatable narratives that move people, open doors to premium contracts, new partnerships, and community trust. Throughout all these achievements and dreams, Madison's never lost focus on home. She's honest about missing Canada, about what it means to set roots somewhere and feel the tug to come back. That's not just nostalgia, it's a call to action. She sees the chance to bring everything she's learned back to Ontario to help build a truly world-class program and to make sure that kids like her, kids like your own, don't have to choose between their communities and their calling. She isn't alone in this either. She's grateful to folks like Crystal McKay, pioneers who've carried the torch for agricultural communications, showing what can be done with grit, vision, and a whole lot of passion. Madison wants her legacy to be a road home for the next wave of agricultural communicators, and for every farm kid with big dreams and muddy boots. So, what can we take from all of this? Madison's story is, in a lot of ways, the story of every farm family who has ever wanted more for their kids than just what's easy. It's about roots, about the value of mentors, whether they're university professors, parents, or just neighbors who cheer you on at the show. It's about believing that every story, from the biggest operation to the smallest show ring, matters. It's about the power of coming home. If you're listening right now as a producer, as someone who works hard and stays humble, don't ever doubt the value of your own voice. Madison's journey, from show ring to classroom and back again, is about making sure that voice is strong enough to shape not just your own future, but the future of Canadian dairy for generations to come. So here are my key takeaways. Roots matter. Even when the soil changes beneath our feet, those roots are where we draw our strength. Mentors matter. Whether they wear barn boots or cap and gown, those who encourage us deserve a thank you. Your story matters. From the kitchen table to Parliament Hill, every farmer's voice, every producer's reality has power. Sometimes you do have to leave home for a while, but nothing beats coming back and planting seeds for the next person. And legacy? It's not the grand gestures, it's the little lessons and honest work handed down through the years. Thanks again for joining me on the Bullvine podcast. Madison's journey has given me, maybe all of us, a little more hope. Hope that through education, communications, and a whole lot of heart, we can make sure the world hears our story the way it deserves to be told. If you like this episode, share it with a friend, send us your thoughts, and remember, your story, whether milk-soaked, mud-streaked, or wrapped in ambition, is worth telling. Signing off for now. Keep your boots dry, your cows content, and your heart in the right place. I'll see you next time, right here on the Bullvine.